Hello there, I am Sparkly Guts and I am back with another YouTube video. So in honor of today's video theme, I decided to dress like one of my drawings. This is going to be, and this has proven to be, a very hard video to film, mainly because I don't know what I'm talking about. So this video is kind of talking about my artistic journey and how Lolita has influenced that, and how Lolita shows itself or reveals itself in my everyday art. So just would like to point out that I'm a Lolita rebel today. No blouse, no blouse. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about my artistic journey and how my art has gotten to the point where it is today. And if I have like a gnarly blue light, it's because my laptop is down here. But so I feel like as many people that are interested in Japanese subculture or Japanese fashion, I was interested in manga when I was in middle school. And once I found out what manga was, it was over for me. Like, I decided as soon as I could that I was going to be a mangaka. But yeah, I like started like drawing characters that I already knew, and I'm doing like fan art and such. And then I realized that I could make my own characters, and I went crazy and I decided I was going to make like this whole universe. I like came up with like 48 different characters, and I had like decided I was going to like make comics with like this universe of like intertwining characters. That didn't happen because I realized I hated writing, and I still do. But I still love drawing, so that's why I still want to be an artist. So when talking about my art, there is no way to ignore the sort of subject matter that I talk about. So I make a lot of art with angels, like an obscene amount of art with angels. I don't know what it is, I just am fixated on angels. Dolls, and for example, I have one of my babies here. I have recently stopped naming my dolls. I don't know what that means, but this is one of my babies. I love her. Actually, she had a dress, but I found out her underwear was cuter than her dress, so now she's just in her underwear. I love her so much. But side note, dolls, clowns and jesters, like interchangeably. Also just like witchy femmes or women, and just like magic. Also lots of blood. So to get started, I want to talk about how Lolita directly affects my life, and not just how I am perceived, but mainly how I feel about myself, and just how Lolita helps me internally. So I've talked about this a lot, but I identify as non-binary, and for some reason Lolita has helped me a lot with my identity, because at first, when I first realized that I identified as non-binary, I thought that I had to dress androgynous or had to look a certain way to be non-binary, but now I know that that is not the truth, and that I can do whatever I feel. And I feel like that thought process kind of reveals itself in my art. And specifically, all of the figures that I usually draw are feminine and overtly feminine, and sometimes they're feminine to the point where it's like they are drowning in like ruffles, lace. They have like giant hair, like just long hair, and I find femininity to the point where it's suffocating very interesting for my art. And I kind of want to communicate the positive feelings I relate to femininity in my art. That was a lot of word vomit. I hope that made sense. But I think that's why Lolita is such a good style to integrate into my art and why I always put it in my art, because I don't think there's any way for me to separate myself and my art from Lolita, since it's such a big part of my life. So getting into the themes that I explore, I would like to start off by saying that these are all things that I am exploring myself and trying to find answers to, and I will say I don't have any of the answers to these. So if you have thoughts about any of these themes that I am discussing, just please comment, and I'd love to start a discussion about these things, because these things have been banging around in my head for months. So the first thing I want to talk about is the merging of pure imagery with images that are either strong or discomforting. So something that I think is very intriguing is that hyperfeminine figures with lots of frilly clothes, big hair, are immediately seen as like these like pure angels, and I don't know, there's something very disconcerting about that to me, because just like obviously just thinking that you completely understand someone because of the way they look is scary and not right. I like to challenge the viewer. I think that this idea is more challenging for people who aren't as familiar with Lolita fashion or more feminine fashions, because as a Lolita, as someone who is extremely feminine, it's easy for me to separate someone who wears Lolita from their like someone wearing Lolita and how they see themselves from their personality, because I understand that just because you're in feminine clothing does not mean it has no indication of your personality at all. So the next three things that I'm going to talk about in relation to my art are actually kind of related to each other, and specifically thinking of gender horror, nullification, and posthumanism. So these are all things that are very intertwined in my art. So starting with gender horror, this is this is a term that I have created for myself, in which I challenge the viewer, because one of my least favorite things is when people look at my art, they're like, oh he, oh she, oh blah blah blah, and it's mainly a reaction to how people treat people in person, and I think times are changing now where it's in some areas, in some communities, it's more common to ask for pronouns instead of just assuming, and I want to find a way to kind of replicate that feeling that I have when I'm misgendered or when people around me are misgendered in my art, because for a cisgender person or someone who is still using the same pronouns as they were given when they were born, it's very unlikely that they'll feel how it feels to hear something like that. So I am kind of searching for a way to communicate that in my work. Something else that I explore a lot in my art is nullification. And nullification is pretty much removing all of the sex organs or discernible body parts that like indicate sex. So I am a person who is not very interested in appearing sexual in any context. I don't like to be addressed in ways like that. It just makes me uncomfortable, and that's completely valid, and it took me a long time to realize that. But a lot of my art for myself kind of reflects that like desire to not be seen, specifically in that aspect. And one of my pet peeves is when people look at my art and they're like, oh my god, it's a naked body, oh my god, there's boobs, oh, if there's boobs then this is like sexual and it's like not appropriate. And I'm like it's like, it's frustrating. It's like, I don't understand why a nude body is seen as such a taboo thing, because it shouldn't be, because I personally believe that the body is not inherently sexual, and if you sexualize the body just because society tells you to, or like you just agree to it, you don't need to reflect on that. The last kind of topic that I wanted to keep in this threesome is posthumanism, and this shows its way in my obsession with dolls. I don't think I've talked about this yet, but I love dolls. Dolls are everywhere. I like literally have dolls beside me and I like look at them like periodically to get ideas or like form my thoughts, because I don't know what it is. Dolls are just super important to my like imagery that I work with, and related to the dolls is posthumanism for me, because posthumanism is pushing beyond the human body itself. It's like so hard to explain. It's like making the human body into this like inhuman thing, and for me that's like equating the body to dolls, but not in a way that is objectifying. When I think of dolls and I think of how I relate to them, I think of them as beautiful things that, I don't know what it is, I just really have a connection with dolls, and I think they're beautiful, and I feel, I wouldn't say I'm a very spiritual person, but I love collecting dolls that other people have owned, and I feel like energy from the past owners stays with dolls, so that means a lot to me. And I kind of struggle with how to communicate that without objectifying, because personally I'm a Lolita that is not interested in the way that Lolitas are often equated to living dolls. But on the flip side, I really love dolls, and I really love looking similar to a doll. And in that context, I mean in like Victorian garb, like ringlets, just like poofy clothes. And I guess I could find a way to struggle through that idea in the future, and I think that'd be a really cool project. So I hope hearing me ramble, and I mean ramble, about my interest in art and kind of how I've gotten to where I've gotten to today. I hope you found that interesting, and thank you so much for listening. I don't know if I'll talk a lot about my art on this channel. I probably will. I don't know why I said that. But if you want to see more of my art, check out my Instagram, which will be linked below. It's just sparkly_guts with a Z. That being said, I do have a lot of extra prints. Like, I did some hand printing over this summer, and I did this little harlequin guy, and I think he's so cute. So if you want one of these, DM me on Instagram. I have a few, and they're hand printed and they're really messy, so if you're expecting like pristine quality, but I guess you'll have the mark of the artist. But that being said, I've never actually sold my art before, so like if you saw something that you're really interested in like throughout the video, shoot me a message, and I can probably find a way to get you some of my art if you really like it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Wait, am I still recording?